the Maharlika Welfare Fund give a solution to the economic issue? Even though na yung background ng law is somehow shady or malicious.
Yes, that is a hot topic today, the Maharlika Fund. And I think to an extent there is, overall, perhaps it's not well understood at this point in time. It has not been well articulated, in terms of some of the points that you want to see. But offhand, from an investment vehicle standpoint, the concept of a sovereign wealth fund has very strong, compelling reasons behind it. And let me do it from my perspective. One, a well articulated sovereign wealth fund, particularly for the Philippine economy, the first of its kind, articulates in very operational terms, concrete terms, the aspirations, the longer term intergenerational goal of looking forward not only with respect to the present generation, but in the coming generations. And that is very true, particularly because many of the resources of the country are exhaustible. So it's not meant only for today, but again for tomorrow. So that is one compelling reason. If it is well, articulated and to be followed. Secondly, from a private investment standpoint, you have so many advantages when you have a sovereign wealth fund. Number one, you got a very high leverage position. Many foreign investors, particularly with respect to large infrastructure, would want to partner definitely with a public sector that is perceived to have a faster way of conducting business. So that is one of the advantages. Secondly, as I've said, if you are a very large fund, a lot of the research, a lot of the priority in terms of good deals will be offered first to the biggest funders. That is the rule in banking. You don't go to the small time. All the best deals you first offer it to the big time investors, the funders. So that is two. Now the question, of course, whether this will be followed, of course, is yet to be seen because we cannot speculate at this point in time. There are, of course, some questions with respect to the use of funds, the risk dynamics of it, and so forth and so on. But we are still at the early stages, and it will be, of course, dependent eventually, okay, on the eating of the pudding, whether it will be a successful venture or not. So I won't venture into that because that is something that have to be seen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, I think the Maharlika investment fund or whatever you call it, it's a good idea, but it's not the right time. Maybe when we find oil, make a windfall profit and so on, we can have a big fund. And the size of the fund matters a lot. I read the article of Dr. Gerardo Sicat in the Philippine Star, and he cited the example of the two largest funds in the world. They suffered heavy losses. I mean, you expect to win some, lose some, but these guys, very large funds, very experienced fund managers, they suffered heavy losses. But they survived because because of their size. They're just it's just like a big ship sailing on rough seas. If you're big, you don't feel the waves too much. But if you're small, you can collapse and drown. So I think it's not the right time, and I would like to associate myself with the points raised by the UP School of Economics economists. Okay, you want to add anything? Okay, can I go?
Hindi mo na, you're in favor of this fund? I mean, know what you went. Yes or no?
I've already said my perspective. From an investment banking standpoint, it has a lot of advantages. You know, uh, I guess in terms of size, in terms of everything. But how it will be eventually carved out, how the funds will be used, that is something else. Okay. So I think that there is so much reservations along that line that it will put into ventures some capital, particularly the pension fund, in other words, that will put it at risk. So that's one question. And of course, a deeper analysis of it would be needed. So at this point in time, as I've said, uh, it's very difficult. It's just that we have to see it unfold. But maybe yeah, the timing and so forth and so on is important. But then the question is, when is the right time? You know, and that is something that you got so many answers to that. So I cannot answer you with a straight yes or no. It is always like an economist. It depends on the initial set of conditions. So I'm just working on that basis. Thank you.
Given the success of government owned and controlled corporations, are you willing to take that chance?
I think at this point in time, again, it is one of organization. So we got to explore that. What is the role of its government institution that are involved in developmental projects? So part of because right now there are so many questions associated with it, and it's very again, and there are no answers that have been given. Like for instance, the National Investment Company is involved in infrastructure projects. So what will be its role relative to this Maharlika fund? That have to be traced out. How will it be funded? Really, again, there are so many things that have raised some questions. Like it has been raised, what will you do with the central bank dividends that are actually mandated to build up their capital? So I guess that those of these are something that the public sector, particularly those, could
Yeah.
continue writing on.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring in some questions from the